This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Hey, Gizmodo Nation. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to YouTube land. And today, we're gonna talk about one of my things that is near and dear to my heart, something I have a lot of experience with, is high mileage bikes and what is too many miles. Let's go for a ride and on this old high mileage Bonneville and have a little conversation.
Do you know that guy?
How's everybody doing? Thought I'd make a video and talk about something kind of I get a lot of questions on, and not necessarily from the channel, but in general. And that is, how many miles is too many miles on a motorcycle? How many miles does a motorcycle have before you have to get rid of it? And that is a question that there is really no straight answer to, but I'm going to do my best to answer it through the experience that I have gathered on a motorcycle. So we're going to just quickly touch base on this motorcycle. This is a 2018 Triumph Bonneville, which I bought in April of 2018. It's now October of 2020. So the bike is 2.5 years old. Bike currently has 73,205 miles. And I ride it every day, 100 miles a day. I am at 741 miles for the week so far. So I ride every day, 100 miles a day, and it's usually on this bike. I do have the other bike, got the VMAX, the TU, blah, blah. We're talking about high mileage bikes. And the Bonneville is now one of these bikes. Pushing 75,000. I mean, it's going to be pushing 74,000 by the end of the day tomorrow. I plan on riding a big day tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully 75 before November. And I'll do a review, a long-term one. But this isn't really about it. We're going to talk a little bit about the Bonneville. We're going to talk about different bikes. And what is high mileage? Well, high mileage is, like I said, it all depends on how the bike was really maintained. If you get a bike that's got 15,000 miles on it, and the fork seals are leaking, and the brakes aren't working, and it's 20 years old, but you're like, well, it's only got 15,000 miles on it, it's a damn good deal. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that bike really wasn't ridden a lot, so a lot of rubberized components are going to be broken or not going to be working correctly. So, you know, it doesn't mileage doesn't really mean a beat bike, but mileage can mean a beat bike. So, in general, I like to run my leader bikes, and I usually ride standard leader bikes, you know, Bandit 1200, Yamaha FZ1. Where am I going? Looks like the road splits. And now on the Bonneville, and I tried the Harleys in there, and those didn't work out. I'm not going to put those into standard bikes because they just aren't in the same category, nor would I don't mean to preclude them, but they definitely are not what I would consider worthy motorcycles of this conversation. Because I've never put high mileages on a Harley. So we're going to talk about the standard bikes that I've ridden and what I find are what's up with high mileage, and should you buy a high mileage bike, and what's a fair price for a high mileage bike, etc., etc. So I guess the big thing is miles generally means the bike's been running a lot. So we're going to equate the miles into hours. So say a bike has 50,000 miles, it's fair to assume that bike takes 1 hour to do 50 miles on average. So that motorcycle has been ran for 1,000 hours. So think of it as a tractor or a dirt bike. How many hours would you need to have between rebuilds and stuff like that? On a bike that requires lots of maintenance or is high compression, things like that, if the components aren't made correctly, there might be some issues with the engine and stuff like that. But I guess it's real testament to a lot of the brands, especially you look at a Suzuki, it's an oil, my Bandit 1200 that has now 100,000 miles on with my buddy Steve Case, who's still riding the hell out of that thing. That engine's still going strong at 100 grand. Now it's got some oil weep issues, it's got some bolt issues. Things are starting to happen. Things happen with age, things happen with time, things happen with running time. The more miles you put on, the more hours the bike is ran. Now, that also correlates with the bigger bikes versus smaller bikes. A bike, let's say a Yamaha FZ6, for example, that has 50,000 miles and has been ran for 10,000 hours. Let's say that bike rotates at an average speed of,
1,000 RPM.
Lots of times that engine spins. And because it's a 600, these motors are spinning more. So a bike with 50,000 miles, that's a 600, is actually going to see more wear than a bike that's, say, Bonneville, for example, where the average engine speed is 3,000 RPMs. And that's nearly half the rotations that engine has spun. Those bearings have seen half as many rotations as the bearings in the 600, the FZ6. So when you think high mileage bikes, it all really correlates to how many times that engine is rotated, how many times those fires have happened, how many times has that crank has endured an explosion, and how many explosions that's been. Clearly, smaller displacement bikes that rev and rev and rev and rev and rev, they're seeing more explosions, they're seeing more pressures on their internal components versus a motorcycle like the Bonneville, which is just puttering around. And that's being overly conservative at 3,000 RPM. This bike, that's cruising at 50 miles an hour on average. Like, these are averages that I have. Of course, I've revved the hell out of this bike to the moon, but this is generally the type of riding I am doing these days. Is back road riding, cruising on the highway, no more than 55, and the motor's just kind of relaxed and just doing its own thing. So this goes back to what is high mileage, and that's where I'm saying how many miles is too many miles. Is all bike dependent on the bike, and that's where you're going to have to figure out, well, let's really think about it. So, like I said, big displacement bikes like my Bonneville here, my FZ1, my Bandit 1200, they weren't revving 5,000, 6,000 RPMs cruising. They're revving, 3,000 to 5,000 RPMs. So that's the type of wear. Their wear is going to be roughly, let's say 3,000 versus 6,000 is going to be at a 50% less and the same amount of miles traversed, or the same amount of hours ran, because it all has to do with engine runtime too. Engine runtime is really just as important as mileage. We don't have hour counters on bikes, but it's something to think about. Is how long has this engine been running? What's the average RPM at the average speed at the average mileage? And then you know how much to expect for wear, because things do wear. Some bikes are prone to wear faster than other bikes. I have had really, really, really good luck with Yamahas and Suzukis. They just generally don't break. They just run and run and run and run. As for me, what is too many miles? Generally, I start to see problems with all my leader bikes around the 70 to 80,000 mile mark. Something starts to give. Either it's plastics start cracking and falling apart, electronics start acting up, cables, wires start breaking randomly. It just becomes this senior bike at that point. Some bikes make it longer than others, but they all start hitting that point, I'd say, for me, in the leader bike range, around that 70,000 mile mark. My buddy Henry on his FZ6, remember, 600, he was starting to notice the similar problems, but at an earlier stage, around the 550,000 mile mark. So, like I said, displacement really is relative to the amount of miles you can put on a bike. And that's why you can see a Goldwing that has an 1800cc 6-cylinder that is revving so low can go twice as far because the revs are half as much. Same with the big Harley cruisers. This is where I'm going to say big cruisers, baggers, big displacement Harleys are actually really reliable bikes when they're properly maintained because they don't spin as often and those components tend to last a little longer internally. So that's why the bigger displacement bikes can have bigger miles, still fetch a decent price, and actually get you a long ways. If you buy a Goldwing with 90,000 miles and it's spinning on average 15 to 1800 RPM while cruising, that's half as much as this. So that would mean it would have the same kind of wear as this bike did at 40,000 miles. So that's kind of how it works. It's kind of how mileage works with motorcycles. And I've noticed it's just about that plateau
of roughly 1,500 hours
for leader bikes, or 70-ish thousand miles, 70 to 80,000 miles on leader bikes, that you start seeing issues. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about the engine. I've got a check engine light. This bike now throws a light randomly. And it's over really silly things. Random sensors not communicating, and it comes on, goes off. I'm at the point where the motor, I know I'm confident in that. It's not going to break. I'm not going to get mad about it. I'm definitely not going to bash it. It's been a great motorcycle, and I still am riding it daily. It's quirky, and some bikes just get like that in age. This bike in particular, it's just electronics are really starting to show age. I think it has a lot to do with the wiring. The wires they use are very, very thin, so they wear, they break. I've had the headlight go out on me just because the wires are super thin, and you get the vibration. Like I said, it's all about the hours that these conditions are, these parts are subjected to. That causes issues. I also ride in the rain, the snow. I push my bikes very early in the season and into very late in the season. And in general, things just break over time. So that's my rant. I'm going to continue my beautiful ride here. I want you guys to like and comment below. I'd like to know what you guys think is a high mileage bike. What is high mileage? How many miles do you have on your motorcycle? Or what's the highest mileage you've ever put on a motorcycle? I want to know. I'm going to work on this. I think this will be my first bike I'll bring to 100,000 miles. At some point next year. I want to know what you're going to do, what your bike is. How many miles you got on your bike? How many miles do you want to have on your bike? And how many miles do you think is too many miles? Leave it in the comment section below. I really appreciate all that you guys do. I'm going to continue riding this beautiful day. We're supposed to get some rain coming in, so I'm going to try to keep racking here. They said we're coming up to 800 miles for the day. For me blabbering. And, or 800 miles for the week. So from me blabbering. So I'm going to keep trucking on until the rain comes and go home and maybe start a fire and relax. So I appreciate all that you guys do. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Guys, I love the comments, love the paint, I love the community that's being built by this channel, around this channel. Just keep sending the comments. I'll do my best to respond when I can. And keep it a shiny side up, folks. I really hope you all have a great autumn, end of your season. If you're in the southern half of the states, enjoy the best riding that you're coming into. And I'll see you around.